We've got a big problem on our hands in the UK. The rental market is absolutely out of control. Tenants are being forced to move further away from their places of work just to find somewhere affordable. So when you're standing on the high street, staring at the listings through the estate agent's windows, or perusing Rightmove online, it's very easy to dream big. I want that extra bathroom, a big garden, a short walk to the train station. But to get that these days, you've got to pay for it, and it will unfortunately break the bank doing so. Keeping your feet on the ground is essential when looking at the rental market. So what can you actually afford? Well, lucky for you, in this video, we're going to unpack exactly how much rent you can afford, also run you through it by your individual income level and give you some top tips to help you maximize your budget so you walk away from this video feeling pretty confident of the numbers ahead of your rental search. So first up is rent versus inflation. Now, rents have increased across the board in the UK, by some places up to 24% in the last 12 months. So if your rent was £1,000 right now, you're going to be looking at somewhere that's around about £240 a month for the same house or flat that you're currently in. Now, why is this happening? Well, landlords often have what's called buy-to-let mortgages in place, which allows them to rent it out to you. And because the interest rates have risen by the highest amount you've seen in the last 15 years, that's also impacting the landlord's pockets. So when they come to renew their buy-to-let, simply because everything is costing a lot more because of inflation, their payments are higher across the board too. So who do you think pays for that? Well, you got it. Unfortunately, it's you guys, the tenants. Now, there are so many different types of rules that people use for assessing how much they can afford on their rent, but we're going to use what I think is the most sensible and the easiest way to work it out. That's because there's not just rent to factor in here, there are other costs too. So if you're using something like the 50-30-20 rule, there are so many varying factors that contribute to this. So for this video, we're going to stick to one of the most widely used ways to assess your affordability. It's called the 30% rule. There are two ways you can work this out. If you have a variable income, you can download what's called a P60 from HMRC, which has your entirely yearly net income clearly listed. Or if you're paid the same amount each month, simply find the net income on the most recent payslip. Now, this rule has been around for some time, and there are other experts out there that will say you can go up to 40%. And that might actually be a reality for some, but this will of course have an impact on your ability to pay those other bills and your quality of life too. So for me, I'm going to stick my flag in the 30% rule here. But look, if you get an opportunity to move somewhere that's a great house and it's actually lower than 30%, then do that. 30% really is just your max budget here. And saving on rent will mean you have more money to enjoy life and save and invest too. So do that if you can. Save money where you can. This will, however, vary depending on the person. Each of you will have different outgoings, dependents, ongoing financial commitments, which will really affect the percentage that you can pay towards your rent. This is simply a guide here. Now let's have a look at this table that I've created for you so you can assess your monthly income against some of the variables. So let's have a quick look at the numbers here. Obviously, you're looking to stay under that 30% range. So find your income on the left-hand side and find the amount that fits in with that budget there. So that's your 30% range. You'll also see the 40 and 50%. That's what we're trying to avoid here. So try and stay under that 30% range. Now, this is obviously based on one person's income. But for example, if you live with your partner, you can add your income to it too. And that will increase the available rent for you both when it comes to renting a property. Now, you could also be looking to shack up with some friends, and if you're uncomfortable sharing your incomes, which is understandable, work out a 30% rule, pull it all together, and then you can understand your max budget too. So budgeting for costs. Now, the reason the 30% is the important number is in the UK, you're going to have a number of fixed costs to pay no matter what. Now, you'll have non-negotiable costs that include things like your council tax, so you can check out your new property's tax band on the local council's website. You've got gas and electricity. Be sure to look into some options for providers in advance and get a gauge from the landlord on the average monthly costs that the tenants are currently paying. You'll also have water. You'll no doubt have a set provider for that, but if you want to save on those costs, utilize less water. Food is a big one. Look to save where you can, and that might mean shopping at Aldi or Lidl over the Waitrose little binges, and take packed lunches into work too to keep these down. There are some other costs to consider for this too. Now, one could be insurance. Now, it's not essential to have, but if you do get broken into, you want to have some insurance so you can claim back some money for your valuables. TV license, you will need one if you're planning on watching TV, so don't skimp on that one. It's very easy to set up. Broadband, use price comparison websites and get the best deal possible for your broadband. Mobile phone too, if you're living in the 21st century, then a mobile phone is essential. And commuting costs, if you're traveling to work, you'll most likely have costs for petrol, trains, or the bus. And this is all before you factor in things like entertainment, clothes and holidays. There is a lot to think about here for sure. If you're like me, then I used to write down budgets on slips of paper or notes on my phone, but the problem I had was understanding my full financial situation. I knew the overall figure, but was missing the 360-degree view that made me feel at ease. And that is why I've created the Ultimate Financial Planner, which has an inbuilt personal and household budget, a sinking funds section to help you save for the bigger costs like car insurance or an emergency fund, an income tracker for my main income and any side hustles I've got going too, debt calculators to help you get out of debt faster, plus manage your credit cards or other loans that you might have, and a savings and investing sheet to track my net worth and even calculate when I'm going to be financially free. It's only $14.99, but for you guys, there's a cheeky discount code for watching the video this far, which is UTG30 is flashing up on the screen there, and that gives you 30% off, making it just over a tenner. Honestly, it'll be one of the best investments you ever make. There's a link in the description below if you want to grab it. Now, enough of the plugging. Let's keep going here as there are more things to consider when it comes to renting. And next up is your moving costs. Now, it's not just as simple as moving house. You'll need to factor in some other key costs to your move. If you're already renting, your deposit is likely to be in the deposit protection scheme, which landlords are required to pay into to keep your money safe. Although some landlords will still operate privately, but most will use the DPS scheme. Now, remember, your current landlord will need to complete their checks and submit the request back to the DPS to pay you back, barring any disagreements or deductions, of course. This normally takes around 5 to 10 days to get your money back, but you're going to need the money ready to put down on the new house. And often there's a security deposit or a holding deposit, as they're also known, to secure the property in the first place. Sometimes the holding deposit can be a couple of £100, but each estate agent is different. And I've known some to want the full deposit up front, especially in London when the competition for renting is so high. Then before you move in, the full deposit in the first month will be due. Some landlords will ask for up to 6 weeks, rare cases 8 weeks, but most likely 4 weeks. Then you have the estate agency fees as well. Usually this will be charged for an admin fee for the paperwork alongside referencing and credit checks too. I've been charged upwards of £300 back in the day, but I also been charged around about £150 too. It really does depend on the agent. Unfortunately, negotiating with these guys on these costs is quite difficult. From speaking to my sister, who actually rented a 3-bedroom house in London quite recently, she paid £270 for the fee and the referencing, which apparently is very good right now. Then of course you've got moving costs. You've got to get your stuff in a van and you've got to get it over to your new place. Now, according to Compare My Move, the average cost of removal ranges from £356 to a man in a van right up to £1,306 for a full family home. These costs can quickly spiral, especially if you're moving long distance or across country, so do budget this in too. So here are some tips that I put together to help you save on your moving costs. Number 1 is use family and friends when you can. Number 2, negotiate a fixed price with your removal company. Number 3 could be do it yourself. Rent a van and do the heavy lifting yourself if you're fit and healthy. And number 4, if you do go with the removal company, pack and unpack yourself to save on the time required from the removal company. Now let's talk about the impact of location when it comes to how much rent you can afford. To do this, we've got the latest figures from the Office of National Statistics, which they update once a year. There's no surprises here, of course. London is top of that list and closely followed by the southeast as the surrounding counties. These guys have great transport links into the capital, so they're still highly attractive, and of course the prices are higher. Now, the cheapest places to live in the UK are the northeast, and if you head just over the Irish Sea to our cousins over in Northern Ireland, essentially rural areas and anywhere that's far away from major cities too. Now, who figured? Clearly from the chart, things are getting more expensive year over year, but to be honest with you, even looking at these figures, it doesn't really paint the full picture. Things are moving so quickly right now, and having researched this a ton recently, prices are so much higher than they were this time last year. So next up, I want to talk through a couple of examples so we can visualize how this might look for someone like you. Example number 1 is my friend Keith. Keith lives in Somerset, but is hoping to move to London after landing a new job in tech in the city centre. He's found a swanky bachelor pad near the city centre for £1,800 a month. Now, Keith's wage is £4,000 a month. So when we look at this, this would be 45% of Keith's entire net salary, which is quite a bit above our target of that 30% rule. Now, Keith has a couple of options here. Either he can try buddy up with someone to lower the average overall costs, or he could look to move somewhere further away from the city centre and travel into the city for work. Example number 2 is Sally. Now, Sally lives in London and is looking to move out of the busy city centre for somewhere more green. Sally earns £2,500 per month, and she lives with her partner Jim, who earns £2,200 a month. So that's a total household income of £4,700 a month. And they actually split everything 50-50. Now, Sally has found a place in Kent with her partner that's only 40 minutes to commute via train into the city centre, and that's £1,200 a month in rent. So if we do the maths here, 4,700 divided by 100 for the 100% and times that by 30 equals £1,410. So Sally and Jim's new rent is 25.5% of their budget, meaning it's quite affordable for them. But obviously, thinking about the increases in train costs, it will likely balance out for them, but they definitely can afford it, and they can get a bit of a bigger place than they can currently have in London for that same amount a month. So we've dived pretty deep today into rents and how affordable they are for people. Of course, costs and rental prices are pretty much changing so rapidly right now, so be sure to research and continually check out what you can actually afford before making the jump. It's silly to put yourself under pressure just to keep up the Joneses, so don't do it. Be sure to check out our next video coming up, which is what is a good salary in London, and we'll catch you on the next video. Cheers, guys.